I'm Madison Timmons.
And I'm JT Timmons.
And we're the co-creators of the hit podcast, The Most Haunted City on Earth.
Look, we love ghosts, but we also love true crime. So we here at Haunted City Studios decided to create From One to Wicked.
A true crime podcast with a killer twist. We'll investigate,
discuss,
then rate
the most brutal and devious crimes and the monsters who commit them.
On a scale from 1 to wicked. So sit back and kill some time with us.
And remember, next time you're walking down the street,
you might just be passing a perfect wicked 10. Hello and welcome back to another episode of From One to Wicked. My name is Madison Timmons.
And I'm JT Timmons.
And today we are going to be covering an unsolved mystery, if you will. And this one's actually a local case that not a lot of people know about. I feel like Savannah has kind of that history of when it comes to true crime.
We hide shit.
We have shit.
No, we hide shit.
Oh, we hide shit. Well, yeah, we have both of those.
Yeah.
Yeah. 'Cause
we have shit.
we do have shit.
We do.
But it's like there are cases that have happened here that I feel like don't get attention because they're gruesome.
And Savannah, we love you, Savannah, but they like to bury. That's a good, way of putting it. Yeah.
And so this case is going to be the unsolved murder of Tami Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
New at 11, a Georgia woman has been waiting since 1994 to find out who killed her sister.
And thanks to CSI Atlanta, she might get those answers soon. Here's Karen Greer.
She had been stabbed over 100 times, run over by a car, beaten, hogtied. It was just terrible.
Stacey Patterson has waited nearly 3 decades for an answer in her baby sister Tami Jackson's brutal and gruesome murder. She was young and naive, according to her sister. Her life violently ended a month after her 17th birthday. Her body found face down on a dirt road by construction workers on the remote Hutchinson Island. That's just outside of Savannah.
From what we know, the people that she was staying with, they were irritating her a little bit. She went to go take a walk, and no one ever saw her alive again after that.
Now, this happened 31 years ago.
Yep.
And it is still currently a cold case, so we're going to be going through it. And honestly, y'all, I don't even know if we're going to rank this because of the fact that it's so unsolved.
Yeah.
But it is a very interesting case. And also, if you are listening to this and you have any information or you remember something, if you live in Savannah, I know some of y'all who listen to this are from here. If you have any information that you think might be helpful to this case, Tami's sister, Stacey, who we'll be mentioning a few times throughout the episode, currently runs a Facebook group called Justice for Tami Jackson. And she is very active on that Facebook page. So if you have any information, obviously you can send it to the official platforms, like Crime Stoppers and things like that. But I feel like her sister would be a great resource to reach out to.
I remember when we read about this case, and it was like, I remember thinking, how in the hell are we not all talking about it?
Right. Right. It's so heinous.
It's a heinous crime.
Yeah. And it's honestly top 2 for some of the, I would say, earlier true crime events of Savannah. Like when I say earlier, I'm talking about 70s to 90s. Those are one of the 2 that I would claim is the most gruesome. And including the other one that not a lot of people seem to talk about is the woman who was murdered by that serial killer in her home.
Yeah. But we couldn't find it anyway.
We can't find anything on it.
We couldn't find anything on it. That's another time.
Yeah,
that's another time.
But
let's go ahead.
That would be the other one, in my opinion. So,
all right, here we go. The unsolved murder of Tami Jackson.
All right. So this is her photo, and we'll insert it for y'all. If you're listening to us on YouTube or Spotify, you can switch over to Spotify video so you can see all the photos that I've found. But Tami Renee Jackson was born on December 17th, 1976. She was an 11th grader who had a passion for dance and played the trumpet at Calvary Baptist Day School in Savannah. And her sister, Stacy Patterson, described her as she was just a sweet, bubbly, kind girl, a little girl who had no beef with anybody, which I feel like is important to note because that.
So she died as a high schooler.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
She died a month after being 17.
Wow.
So.
Wow.
Yeah. And then she was. So on January 26, 1994.
That's my actual full
JT's day of birth.
That's my day of birth.
Yeah.
I was born on January 26, 1994. That's insane.
Yeah.
What the hell?
Just a month after turning 17, Tammy's lifeless body was discovered by port workers who had arrived to clear land on Hutchinson Island. And if y'all have never been to Savannah or aren't familiar with the way Savannah's laid out, Hutchinson Island is on the other side of the Savannah River. So if you're standing on River Street and you're looking at the river, you're looking at Hutchinson Island. Really, all that's out there is the convention center and the West End nowadays.
And a golf course.
Yes, it does have that as well. But back at this time, it was pretty much nothing. The Westin wasn't even there at that point. So it's a kind of desolate area. But the gruesome scene was found approximately 15 minutes away from the main road in an isolated area on Hutchinson Island. Tammy's body was face down and severely mutilated. She had been hogtied, stabbed over 100 times with varying accounts of that exact number, but all of them say it was over 100, and repeatedly run over by a car.
My God. Like that is
One
gotta
of the
be
worst
worse
ways
deaths.
Yeah.
I can imagine.
Seriously, it is truly just a horrific way to kill someone, and just absolutely shows whoever did it had zero empathy. So, and according to a medical examiner, they said this was a slow death. Tami Jackson suffered before she died.
That's brutal.
Which is horrible to know. Because you never want anybody to actually suffer in these situations.
No, exactly.
You always hope that at least it was quick.
Yeah, it's already a bad thing happening to them. But like, I'm not saying getting strangled is a great, death or anything, but you just hope that they don't get tortured beforehand, which this woman was obviously very tortured.
But someone wanted her dead, her life taken in an incredibly violent way. On January 26th of that year, construction workers on Hutchinson Island made a gruesome discovery. Tammy's mutilated body was found face down on a dirt road. She had been stabbed over 130 times and run over repeatedly.
What she must have gone through, I think about that all the time. I pray, God, please, that she didn't feel all that when it was happening to her. I just have to believe that she was already on her way to heaven.
No one has ever been charged with Tammy's murder. Now there's a renewed hope.
And Tammy's murder was widely regarded as excessive and unjustified. Numerous footprints and tire marks were found in the vicinity of her body, and her body was found only about 10 feet away from the river. So investigators wonder if the killer or killers wanted to be found.
Yeah.
Because they're like, why didn't they throw her body in the river? Why did they leave her out to be found?
Weird. What? They investigators wonder if the killer wanted to be found?
Yeah.
No.
Well, that's what they're currently talking about in the cold case, because they're like, why would they? Because, again, if you're not familiar with the Savannah River, if you want something to disappear, the Savannah River is a great place to do it, because that river has such an insane current.
Yeah.
It's, people commit suicide jumping off of the Talmadge Bridge, and very often they don't ever find the bodies of those people because of the river. It
sucks you down. You're not really supposed to fall into that thing.
Exactly.
It's not a place to go swimming.
No, it is not.
Yeah.
So that's why they're like, that's so suspicious.
I get it. Yeah, I get it. But they also chose Hutchinson Island, which was, it's still pretty desolate over there.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a place where if you, want vultures to consume the majority of the body and it not be found quickly, then that's the spot.
Right. And Tammy and her mother, so kind of giving you a background of how this all led up. Tammy and her mother often didn't see eye to eye, And one night she was asked to leave her parents' house due to her rebellious behavior. So she got kicked out.
Okay.
And so initially she moved in with her boyfriend, who was an adult, first off. She was 17. So
Okay.
a week before she was murdered, she goes to a birthday party with a friend. They ended up finding themselves down on River Street, and a couple of men who live in the same apartment complex as her brother or her boyfriend gave her and her friend giant cola cabs from Wet Willie's.
Oh, boy.
Which
All
is
right.
the strongest
That's the
drink
strongest.
that you can get at Wet Willie's. And it's
Might be the strongest drink in Savannah.
Yeah. It's a slushie that has just like an absolute like fuck ton of alcohol in it. And I don't think they'll sell you more than 2 of them or something like that.
Something like that. Yeah, it's called Call a Cab for a reason.
It's if you want to get messed up in a quick manner.
Yes.
That's what you get. So they gave these girls Wet Willies, and apparently some after that the men took them back to their apartment.
Okay.
And apparently some things happened that night. Some were consensual and some not. Because she was a minor, the details of that aren't very public, but they know this because of her diary.
Okay.
And so the next morning, she calls her boyfriend and says that something happened the night prior and that she's no longer comfortable staying in the apartment complex. Okay. So she wasn't trying to live in her boyfriend's apartment anymore. And so, especially because he was going to be gone a lot. So she would have been at home alone. So he suggested that she stay with a couple who also had a baby and were his friends until he completed his military training, which is why he was out so much.
Okay.
The couple's apartment was located on Hutchinson Island, situated outside of Savannah.
Okay.
Which is which is so strange, you know?
Yeah. There's not a lot of housing out there. I mean,
there's really not.
There are apartments, but
not a ton.
Not a ton.
So this was her body that was found.
Okay.
In the crime scene.
Okay.
And then this was taken by the cold case investigator. So this is the area.
Okay.
Super desolate.
Yeah, Lord. Goodness.
Like absolutely.
Oh, I know
nothing.
exactly where that is. Okay.
Yeah. So on the evening of January 25th, so the day before she was murdered, Tami would visit a convenience store around 7 p.m. And a cable technician who was also in that parking lot of the convenience store noticed that Tami appeared agitated while conversing with 2 men in a car. 2 men, which is interesting.
Yeah.
However, the men were never identified, obviously, because the cable technician's not going to know who these guys are. But the technician approached Tami to inquire if she was all right, and she responded that she was. After the man left, she continued speaking with the other man. So after the cable technician left, she kept talking to them. So her older sister, Stacy Patterson, claims that she was involved with the wrong crowd in the weeks leading up to her death.
Okay.
And a direct quote from Stacy was, "From what we know, the people she was staying with were irritating her, and she took a walk, and no one ever saw her after that."
Wow. You know, you have to absolutely want to do this and have fun doing it to how she died.
And also prepare for it because, like, people...
Yeah.
I mean, sure, this is Georgia. People keep all sorts of things in the back of their trucks. And not to say it was a truck. They have no idea.
Yeah.
Or they have not released that information to begin with. But, I mean, the fact that they came out there with rope and stuff, it's like just shows that they did a little bit of planning for this.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't know. It's just like all of this leading up to it, of course, it is very possible that they could have done it. It's just, you know, that also is possible that she could have gone for a walk and possibly encountered a completely different individual who had this in mind.
Well, so here's the thing, and I don't think I included any of this later on, but I did read from the cold case investigator that there was a period of time where they were considering, do you remember the man that tied up those 2 girls down in Florida? I want to say it was like up near like Apopka or something. But it was, or maybe it was not.
There was an Apopka serial killer.
Well, yeah, but it was this guy
Railroad
was like
killer.
a young dude who like tied up 2 girls and like sexually assaulted them for days on end and left them there.
Yeah, to the
Okay.
tree?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I know what you're talking about.
Yes. Okay. So there was a time where, because that was happening around this same time period,
yeah.
they thought maybe the guy was traveling down I-95.
Okay.
Kind of in that Gary Ray Bowles sort of
Sure,
way.
sure.
And maybe he
Possibly.
was trying to test something or try to test how he was going to kill.
Yeah.
And maybe Tami was in the crossfires because
Yeah.
it's a possibility, but there's no credibility to that at all.
Okay.
It was just a theory that they were working on for a period of time.
Okay.
But this is also some other photos of Tami.
Okay.
So when it came to the DNA, no one has ever been charged with Tami's murder. Dang. And the police identified Tami in the most bizarre but southern way I could imagine. So when they found her body, the police identified Tami because she was wearing a class ring.
Okay.
So they were able to go to the school where that class
Sure.
ring was from, look through a yearbook and find her.
Wow.
And her mother's initials were by her name.
Okay.
I don't know why, but supposedly they went off her initials. And so because they had the initials, they were able to find what church her mother went to. And they had the pastor from the church come out and identify Tami. And he gave
Goodness
a positive
gracious.
identification.
Yeah.
Which I'm like,
Goodness gracious.
yeah, it's a very southern way of
That is a southern way of doing it.
deducing who the victim is. But the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, or GBI crime lab, has already conducted tests on the evidence that they collected in connection with the murder of Tami. Something important to note, her toxicology reports all came back clear.
Okay.
So she was completely sober when this happened.
Okay. Good to know.
Yeah. And in 2020 was when the cold case kind of got opened because they literally just let this go because they had no leads, truly. And Detective Tara Smith with the Savannah Police Department was in charge of investigating Tami's murder as part of the Savannah Cold Case Unit.
I want nothing more than to give them this closure that they deserve.
Detective Tara Smith is the lead on Tami's case with the Savannah Police Cold Case Unit. She says the evidence collected back then will go to a private lab for DNA testing.
They're confident that their instruments and tools and methods will have results for me.
The Georgia Bureau of Investigation's crime lab already tested the evidence. This time, the test will involve different methods for DNA testing, ones that have helped solve other cold cases.
And if somebody in my circle of suspects is also, their profile comes up, I mean, that's really telling there.
Money raised in support of Tami will pay for those private lab tests.
This is our best chance. This is the closest we've ever gotten, and we've never had so much support before. Even when it first happened,
and stated that the evidence would be retested using alternative methods that had successfully yielded results in other cold cases. Because this was the 90s and forensic.
A lot has happened forensically.
Yeah, it's changed so much. We've gotten way new technology. I mean, obviously, we have the internet now, which helps, and that wasn't really a thing.
Did it say she was sexually assaulted? I forget.
Not at the crime scene.
Okay.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
The only type of alluding that might have happened was the night that she was out.
Got it.
With
Got
those
it. A week ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, a week before that. Okay.
Yeah. And so, but they are confident that their instruments, tools, and methods will have results for me, said Detective Smith.
Okay.
Which is great.
It's 5 years after that.
We haven't gotten any update.
Shit.
So.
Dang.
Yeah. Detective Tara Smith, as she described the wooded and remote landscapes of Hutchinson Island, suggested that the method of murder and the placement of Tami's body may indicate an organized killing.
Yeah. Seriously. You have to really be a sick person to do that. I mean, dang.
And so, according to Tami's diaries, which Detective Smith really did a thorough read through, she had visited that area to party before.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like in previous
Interesting.
times. But that wasn't, according to Detective Smith, that wasn't uncommon, though, in that time period.
Yeah.
Because, Hutchinson Island, it's like any place in America where kids want to get away from where their parents could find out they're smoking weed or they're drinking or whatever they're doing. So they go find desolate areas. And that happened to be Hutchinson Island in the 90s.
Gotcha.
For a lot of kids. So that's why she had been out there before. But the only two other details I really can give y'all is that according to Detective Smith, while going out to the scene, they had to use her own personal Jeep Wrangler because the squad cars more likely would get stuck.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so that's partially why I said truck earlier, because I'm like thinking in my mind, there's no evidence saying that it ever was a truck, but just knowing Georgia landscape, I'm like, you would need a pretty decent all-wheel drive, to
get there.
Well, I mean, if they had to take her Jeep Wrangler.
Yeah, I know. I don't know. I'm like trying to. I know Hutchinson Island now, and it's not
it's a little bit more developed now.
Oh, it's a lot more developed
but
now.
Back then, it wouldn't have been touched.
Dang,
so
it was like probably super muddy and wet. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Well, and also because if you think about it too, where Hutchinson Island is, you're adjacent to all of that swamp, like marshy swamp. Over to the left. I'm
gonna reach out to Stacy because I would like to see if she'd want to be on the show to share. Like we could do a more in-depth episode because I feel like she's gonna have way more than what is publicly available right now. Because I'm actually super interested in this case.
Yeah, it's a fascinating case, and I would love for their family to be able to have at least some type of closure.
Yeah, for sure.
Because, it's just there's not a ton of information. It's a very, underground true crime story.
Sure.
And I think probably because it was in the 90s and not a lot of people look to Savannah when they're looking up true crime, they oftentimes just forget about little cases like this, even though they cause very horrific after effects.
This is easily one of the most gruesome crimes I've ever heard.
Right.
When she was run over, hogtied, stabbed.
And Detective Smith noted that the hog tying was a very intricate knot. So whoever did it knew how to tie knots.
Oh. And they didn't look into the, military.
Right.
Oh, God. Ooh.
But there's so many. Again, it's Georgia.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of.
No, I know. I'm just saying there are people that you mentioned in this that could tie that knot, probably.
Exactly.
But, again, who knows?
But yeah, it's just the fact that they have zero leads is just surprising.
Insane.
All right, Cheryl, CSI Atlanta on location again. We are at GBI headquarters.
Yes.
Where a lot of testing goes on.
Lot of testing. This is where all the forensic testing is done. Everybody sends their stuff here.
Great equipment and some new technology. They don't have everything.
They don't have everything. And here's the great thing, CSI Atlanta does. So there's a particular test that we wanted to do on the Tami Jackson case. The only person in the world that does it is Francine Bardole in Utah. And we got Francine.
Meet Francine Bardole.
My passion is cold cases.
Bardole is truly helping the next generation of investigators solve the latest cases by using her patented Bardole method.
The Bardole method is really quite interesting. Is something that I came up with a few years ago.
CSI Atlanta connected Francine and Savannah detective Tara Smith.
I want nothing more than to give them this closure.
To get evidence in this case retested.
It's not that the police aren't doing anything, they just don't know what else can I do. And this was in 1994, and since 1994, DNA has come a long way, technology has come a long way.
This new technology can uncover things not possible back then and give Stacy and her family answers they've been waiting for.
We're going to get this done. This is going to be a solvable case.
Her life was taken from her when she was 17 years old, and she deserves not to be forgotten.
For CSI Atlanta, I'm Karen Greer.
So, again, y'all, this one's just kind of a shorter little episode for you today. And honestly, I don't think it's even appropriate to rate this.
Yeah, no.
But I, again, will mention if you know anything about this case or you had family who lived in Savannah in the 90s or knew so-and-so who knew so-and-so and may have some details about this, please reach out to Stacy on Justice for Tami Jackson on Facebook. I'm sure she would appreciate any of the leads you can have. They're very active on it still to this day. So
good.
Yeah. And thank you, Stacy, for being willing to share so many details about this, because honestly, a lot of the information I was able to gather really was from her being vocal and going out and talking about the case. So with that, y'all, let's see. Sad way to start your day, but hopefully you enjoyed today's episode, and maybe we can hopefully get Stacy on the podcast.
Yeah,
and
we're gonna be doing longer ones and then a couple mini ones here and there. So that's kind of what we found is working. So
absolutely.
Cool.
But,
all right.
Thank y'all again for listening. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Go watch something a little bit cheerier to bring up your spirits, because I know I would personally need that after this one.
Or do a deep dive and try to solve this case.
That's true. Pull a don't fuck with cats.
There you go.
Yeah. So, but alrighty, y'all. Thank you again. My name is Madison Timmons.
And I'm JT Simmons.
And don't forget, next time you're walking down the street, you might just be passing a perfect 10.